It's 7:30 a.m. on this July 16th. I'm Phil Mathieu.
And I'm Melissa Caen. The Red Cross is helping more than a dozen people find a place to stay after a fire swept through 2 homes near Pittsburgh overnight. Crews were called in to tackle the 3-alarm blaze on North Street just before 11 o'clock last night.
I was watching TV, just laying down watching TV. I heard the crackling of the fire. Looked out my window and saw it was all, red flaming up.
Now, to make things worse, power lines came down during the fire, slowing down the crew's progress.
Anytime you have live wires down, the possibilities of, hearing explosions, it could be fireworks, it could be, propane tanks or butane tanks. You're hearing things exploding, you're going to back out for your safety of your crew.
Crews say that dry trees on the property helped the fire spread quickly. But because it was so hot, firefighters had to take turns going in and out of one of the homes. But fortunately, no one was hurt.
Meanwhile, CAL FIRE has issued a red flag fire alert for this weekend, and that means that fires can easily ignite in certain dry areas. Firefighters across California have been busy this week with soaring temperatures fueling massive wildfires, including the Whittier fire near Santa Barbara, where 1,600 firefighters are battling the 17,000-acre blaze that's already destroyed 8 homes. And that's why firefighters in the Bay Area are taking note of the red flag warnings and getting prepared.
We'll call for additional alarms just to ensure that our personnel, we can rotate people out, limit the amount of exposure, make sure that they take their turnout jackets off, get some cold water.
The Alameda County Fire Department says that the heat wave we're experiencing this weekend means it's going to take longer to put out wildfires because crews can overheat while working in the sun, and the fire can spread faster. Meanwhile, in the South Bay, where they're going to be setting up 11 cooling centers open today for San Jose folks looking to beat the heat. The centers will be open from 1 to 9. The temperature there is expected to reach 95 today. Highway
4 near Brentwood is back open this morning after a crash that injured at least 9 people. It happened last night near the Sand Creek Road off-ramp. CHP says a stolen Honda Accord was driving on the wrong side of the highway and hit a van head-on, and that van had a family inside. It's unclear what charges the driver will face.
This morning, we've also learned 2 adults and a child are recovering from mild hypothermia after the Coast Guard had to rescue them from the bay. Officials say the 3 people were pulled from the water by a helicopter near Menlo Park after their small boat somehow capsized. All 3 boaters were wearing life jackets.
And lawmakers could vote as early as tomorrow on whether to extend the state's cap-and-trade program with even stricter environmental controls. Governor Jerry Brown says that California needs to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 40% from 1990 levels by the year 2030. And he says extending his cap-and-trade program is how we're going to get there. He says it will improve the air quality across the Golden State. That's one of his main goals. But scientists say that this plan would do the exact opposite.
Builds the gas chambers for our children's future and our climate's future.
California cap-and-trade system is copied by the biggest country in the world, China. Don't throw this thing out.
An impassioned plea there from the governor. 4 California Republicans in Congress are urging their counterparts back home to vote no and are using this as an opportunity to speak against the state's high-speed rail project.
California State Assembly member Phil Ting, he wants public to have access to body camera footage here in California, and he's drafted a bill for a statewide policy on the release of video within 90 days of fatal police shootings and other major incidents. But some law enforcement agencies say it should be up to the local police departments when to release the video.
For us, we think this strikes a compromise at balancing the public's need to know and right to know, at the same time also protects law enforcement.
Groups that have urged that transparency should be weighed against privacy. It's already a national debate that could be headed for a vote in Sacramento. Assemblymember Ting says that if it doesn't pass this year, well, he'll try again next year.
In case you missed it, in a rare move, a bill backed by Democrats actually failed in the Assembly after a number of other Democrats voted no or abstained. The bill, SB 620, would have eliminated mandatory sentencing for people who commit crimes using firearms. It would have given judges the discretion instead.
But that a judge has the authority to look at the case honestly and directly and make a decision about whether or not in this circumstance, in this case, those enhancements are needed.
This is not the firearm enhancement law. This is the get out of jail free card for using a firearm in the commission of a crime that results in great bodily injury. This does nothing to make California safer.
The final vote was 31 in favor, 34 against, with 15 abstain. New this morning, the Australian foreign minister is criticizing President Trump for his comments to the wife of French President Emmanuel Macron. During his trip to Paris, President Trump told Brigitte Macron that she's, quote, in such good shape. A reporter asked Australian Foreign Minister Julie Bishop how she would respond to that comment.
I'd be taken aback, I think. It's a rather interesting comment to make. I wonder if she could say the same of him.
Now, the President and First Lady wrapped up the trip with dinner at the top of the Eiffel Tower with the French President and his wife, and they said their goodbyes at the Bastille Day parade.
And now the president is back in the United States, and he's tweeting, this time about his administration's success in the stock market, saying that it's up over 17% since the election. Brooke Silva Braga has more on the president's weekend from New York.
President Trump spent much of Saturday at the U.S. Women's Open, which is being held at his golf club in Bedminster, New Jersey. But questions over his campaign's contacts with Russia now follow him almost everywhere. A new campaign filing shows more than $600,000 in legal expenses for April, May, and June. $50,000 went to the firm representing his son. That payment was made a week before news surfaced of Donald Trump Jr.'s meeting with a Russian lawyer, a meeting the president defends.
Nothing happened from the meeting. Zero happened from the meeting. And honestly, I think the press made a very big deal over something that really a lot of people would do.
Donald Jr. was joined at the meeting by Paul Manafort and Jared Kushner from the campaign, intermediary Rob Goldstone, the Russian lawyer Natalia Vedelnitskaya, and we now know former Soviet military officer Arnad Akhmetshin. He's a Russian-American lobbyist with suspected ties to Russian intelligence, whose presence at the meeting Trump Jr. failed to mention in an interview earlier this week.
As far as you know, as far as this incident is concerned, this is all of it. This is everything. This is everything.
The White House announced Saturday the president has hired Washington lawyer Ty Cobb to represent him. Mr. Trump tried to refocus on his agenda in a tweet Saturday with a promise of progress on health care. Next week, the Senate is going to vote on legislation to save Americans from the Obamacare disaster, he wrote, but it's not clear if there's enough Senate support to pass the bill. Brooke Silva Braga for CBS News, New York.
Meanwhile, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says that the Senate will, in his words, defer consideration on the health care bill. That means that the health care bill will not come to the floor this week. This follows words that Senator John McCain of Arizona will be absent as well after he had surgery Friday to remove a blood clot from under his left eye. So 2 other Republicans are opposed. That leaves not enough votes to bring the bill up for consideration. And here's what a draft of the bill would look like. It adds billions of dollars in funding to fight opioid addiction, puts more money into 6 tax credits that low-income Americans pay for their coverage, and it also leaves in place some of the Obamacare taxes on the wealthy.
Meanwhile, the court battle over the president's travel ban also continues. The Trump administration is asking the U.S. Supreme Court to clarify its recent ruling on the ban, where it limited entry to certain people with bona fide relationships to people in the U.S. The Justice Department then defined bona fide relationships as immediate family and excluded grandparents and other family members. A federal judge in Hawaii disagreed with that definition and expanded it. So now, the Justice Department wants the High Court to decide who is right. What is a bona fide relationship? And they want to freeze on that Hawaii federal judge's ruling in the meantime. The state of Hawaii has to file their briefs on Tuesday.
And former FBI Director James Comey is writing a book, and publishers are already eager to pay big money for it. According to the New York Times, Comey is meeting with companies ready to secure the deal. The book will reportedly cover his 4-year tenure as FBI Director, a position he lost in May after President Trump fired him. The book will be fully vetted before it's released to make sure that nothing classified gets out.
I'm sure. Residents of a Hawaiian high-rise are allowed back into their homes after a deadly fire ripped through the upper floors on Friday. Thick black smoke could be seen all over the island of Oahu as debris rained down from the high-rise. More than 100 firefighters worked to put out the blaze. Crews said the building was not equipped with the right safety gear.
Without a doubt, if there were sprinklers in this apartment, the fire would be contained to the unit of origin.
3 people died in the fire. Investigators are still trying to figure out what sparked the blaze.